Today we are going to go over some utility shortcuts, so let's get right into it. Let's start off with in and out points. You can create them with I as in point and O as your out point. These are mainly useful when rendering, when you can just select a region of your timeline to get rendered. Or when you're selecting a track from your media pool, you can double click on that track and select the portion you want right here with hitting I and O as your in and out points, and then dragging either only your video or your audio out. Or you can drag the whole clip by just holding onto the clip and just dragging it down onto the timeline, and it will put both the video and the audio onto your timeline. So let's delete those, and if you want to also get rid of your in and out points, you can simply hit P and this will get rid of them both. But if you only want to get rid of either your in point or your out point, then you can hit Option and I and this will get rid of your in point, and Option and O will get rid of your out point. Then if you for some reason want to only render out or select the video or the audio, then you can simply select your in points and out points for only those specific measures. That means if you press Command and I, this will only select an in point but only for your video, and Command plus O will select an output for your video. So let's clear those, and now if you only want to select your audio, it's the same thing but you do it with Shift. That means Shift and I will only select the in point for the audio, and Shift and O will only select the output for the audio. Also, here's a little bonus that I pretty much never use, but it could come in handy. So when you have your in and out points, again by I and O, then you can jump between them by pressing Shift, Command, I to input and O to output, and this will just jump between those 2 points. Okay, next up, if you have any clip selected and you press C, it will open it up in the Fusion page, and now you can play around with all of these fun Fusion nodes right here. Then this gets a little advanced, but if you use these, then it will be really useful. So if you select multiple tracks and you want to create a compound clip, you can now only hit K and it will create one. You just can give it a name and then create, and it will create a compound clip for you. And if you want to get into that compound clip to make more changes, you can press Y on your keyboard and it will open that compound clip up in a timeline. Now you can make changes and it will reflect on the outside on your previous timeline. To go back, just simply head to your media pool and double click on your actual timeline and it will take you back to the exact point where you left. And if you don't know what a compound clip is, it's basically a bunch of clips just stacked together into one timeline, and you insert a timeline into a timeline. I know it seems a bit complicated, but they are really useful, especially with fusion effects. But if you stack up a lot of clips into them, it can get kind of hefty and you need to sometimes render that clip in place. That means only render that clip and then render the entire project at the end. But that clip gets rendered in front. And you can simply do this by pressing Shift and K, and this will pop up with a similar menu where you can choose some options. I usually just leave it at the default values and then just press render. And this will render the clip in place, also ask you where you want it to put it, and you just press open and it will do its thing, and then you're ready with the clip. The next one is a little bit of bonus if you're making your thumbnails directly in DaVinci. This is usually done because you have all of the color grades right and you have all of the text formats and so on. So if you want to now export the current frame you're on, like if I wanted to use this as, for example, my thumbnail on my Instagram reel, then I can just press L and this will directly export the current frame. I will just choose a place, hit export, and it will be there. And last but not least, we have all of the overlay shortcuts. So let's start off. F will open up the transform overlay. This will give you the ability to just move your mouse around while you're clicked in and move your clip. And as you can see, it changes the X and Y value over here. If you want to zoom in, you can still do it with these corners right here, or I would just prefer using the inspector because I find it a little bit more accurate. By the way, if you want to be more precise with your inspector while you're hovering over any number in any kind of settings in DaVinci, you can simply hold down Option and it will be a lot more precise. You can also do a little bit of rotation and just play around with it. It's much easier to move things this way than to do it with just only the X and Y axis over here. And the next overlay we can activate is G. And G looks pretty much the same as the transform one without the inner circle, and that is because this is the crop tool. So if I just drag this to the side, as you can see, it crops my image, and there's nothing much to it. You can also find the controls over here in the inspector again, and I usually just use these because, again, they are more precise, especially when you hold down Option, and it will just go by slower increments. And you can also adjust the softness of the corners right here. So as you can see, it has this nice sort of blend into the darkness. If you, by the way, want to turn off all of these edges, you can simply hit this little icon right here and it will turn them off. And you can now still play with the inspector while seeing everything in the picture. The next overlay is activated by pressing H, and it's the dynamic zoom. It is this little setting right here, and if you move with any of these dots, it will activate it directly. Dynamic zoom is basically like kind of like an easy way to do a zoom into the picture. The amount of zoom that's going on here is dependent on how far from each other are these two triangles. That means if they are like super close, like when I zoom in and move this green one super close to this red one, it will just zoom in a tiny bit. And you can see the changes when we turn off the dynamic zoom. And now, as you can see, it's pretty much not doing anything right now because it's just such a small change. But if we activate dynamic zoom again, we zoom in to make finer adjustments, and we really punch it in, and now turn off the dynamic zoom again, zoom out a bit, and now you can see that it is really zooming out quite a lot compared to the previous example we had. A little thing that you can do to really spice up your edits over here is in the dynamic zoom section. If you have it closed, you just simply click on it, and now you can choose from linear, ease in, ease out, and ease in and out. This will basically add curves to your kind of like zoom graph, and it will make it all really smooth. Okay, so that's dynamic zoom covered, and the last one we have is activated by pressing J, and this will activate your Fusion overlay. This is mostly used with special plugins or effects that you do in Fusion. Like for example, here we have a zoom pack from Mr. Alex Tech. If you want to download it, I will just leave the link down in the description. It does this really nice dynamic zoom, and you can position the point where it zooms into by pressing J and activated the Fusion overlay, and now just moving this X across the screen, and it will just zoom into that point. And if you stack all the way to the end, I get bonus number 2 for you, which is Command plus F, which will just full screen your entire video. This is just useful when you're playing back your entire clip and you can see all of the changes that you made without any interruptions. Okay, so if you plan on going into any sort of animation, you are probably going to need a lot of keyframes. And the easiest way to create a keyframe is to go into the inspector right up here and just click this little diamond icon right here. That has created a keyframe. And if I want to create another keyframe, I can simply move my playhead and go over and just change the value. And DaVinci will calculate all of the steps in between those two keyframes. So to make my job a little bit easier, let's say I wanted to add a few keyframes in between these two. The easiest way to do this, you could just hit the diamond icon again and again, but also you can just press A and this will create a keyframe on the things you already enabled keyframes on. That means if I only enabled zoom keyframes, it's only going to create zoom keyframes. But if I also enabled, let's say, pitch, then it's also going to create pitch keyframes everywhere that I go and press A. If you want to remove the keyframe you're currently on, you just need to hit Option plus A and it will remove it. If you want to speed up or slow down your clip, you can head over to your inspector and click on speed change. If you don't want to open up the inspector, you just want to do it with a shortcut again, then you can hit R and this will open up the entire change clip speed menu. You can change a lot of things here, and when you're done, just hit change. Let's say that this clip was just this long and I wanted to kind of stretch this portion over to here but have it slowed down so that it filled the entire portion there. The best way to do this is going to be by hitting Command and R, and this will bring up the speech change controls. And now when I hover over with my mouse upon this higher portion up here, then when I stretch it, it will actually slow down the clip to the correct speed that I needed it in. You can also use this function to create speed ramps by just clicking on this little arrow right here and then clicking on speed ramp and up to 100, and it will make a bunch of speed ramps for you, just switching between different speeds. Or you can do it by yourself by just adding a speed point right here, and then you can adjust the speeds of the individual portions of your clip. Then if you want to move the inside of your clip but not the length of it, you can can hit T and this will activate trim mode. Trim mode can do a bunch of things, but in our scenario, I'm just going to show you this one, which is going to be to move the footage inside of your clip without changing the actual length of it. You can also grab the clip from the side and this will just ripple move the entire timeline to the point that you choose. To go back to the regular selection mode, you can just click your little pointer right here, or you can hit Command T and this will bring you back. Then if you want to make a transition between two clips, you can hit Shift T to make a transition both on the video layer as well as the audio layer. But let's say we don't want to do that, so let's redo. And now if I even select both of these and hit Shift Command T, this will only make a video transition. And if we undo that too and hit Shift Option T, this will only make an audio transition. The audio transitions are very useful, especially when you are, for example, making YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, or TikToks, and you can just blend the audio between those really fast cuts. Also, if you're moving clips about and you find yourself not having the snapping feature on, which you can just turn on with this magnet right here, and now it will magnet it to you, I have also a shortcut for that, which is set to V. And if you hit V, it's the exact same thing as just turning off and on the magnet. Then if you want to test out a clip, or a clip is just in the way, you can simply disable a clip entirely by just pressing the little slash icon. And this will disable both the clip and everything that's linked to it. But if you, again, hold down Option and click on only the video portion of the clip and then press slash, it will only turn off the thing that is actually selected. So if you are zooming in and out constantly of your viewer, you can simply reset it to the default position, which is the full filled position, with just hitting minus, and this will completely fill it in. Then if you want to enable or disable audio scrubbing, which is basically if I turn on the voice right here, you will hear it, and if I now move across the entire timeline, you will hear that my voice is actually kind of speaking. If I want to disable this while editing, I can simply hit the little squiggly icon on the top left of your keyboard and this will completely disable it. And last but not least, a feature that I love for editing A-roll is selection follows playhead. And as you can see, every time I move my playhead around, it will select the clip that's directly beneath it. It can get kind of clumsy while editing shorts because I have lots of effects right here and it jumps to pretty much whatever it wants. So to turn it off, you can simply hit Command and the squiggly line again, and this will turn off selection follows playhead. So to select everything now, you have to actually click it. Okay, so those are all of the utility shortcuts you need for DaVinci Resolve, with some bonus ones added. And if you want a PDF and config of my entire shortcuts pack, then that's going to be in the description down below. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.